We'll move over to weather and message. It's a fairly straightforward one here. For the forecast, we're coming out of as everyone appreciates, a unusually fall-like period here. But I think the message is that summer's returning, and at least in terms of the temperatures, and we're going to see a probably an extended period back of warmer than normal weather. And I'll talk about that here more than just a couple minutes. But if we look at the last week, again, we've been in a pattern with a big trough over the central and eastern part of North America, with many Canadian origin air masses moving through the state, and again, much more like late October, early November than early September here. On the left-hand side, these are our departures from normal for the last week, and well, you see colors there that we typically haven't seen or haven't seen for a while, and most of the state and region for that matter, 6 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. It was the second consecutive, actually 2.5 weeks. We've been cooler than normal, but significantly cooler than normal last week. And again, many daytime. We had several instances of daytime temperatures not getting out of the 50s. We did have some minimum temperatures in the 30s. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but fortunately, no widespread frost or freeze conditions occurred during this outbreak of cool air. On the right-hand side are precipitation totals, and this one is quite interesting. Most of the southern part of the state was again drier than normal. Again, the lighter green shade here is half an inch or better, but as you go north, you can see significantly higher totals in the northern part of the state. We've seen that pattern much of the growing season. But notice in portions of the central upper peninsula, we had some very heavy rain here earlier in the week. In some instances here, more than 4, even 5 inches of rain fell in again the last couple of days. So huge difference in conditions across the state, from too much water in some locations to too little, and abnormally dry conditions. And again, I'll mention that here just a moment. I did talk about frost and freezing temperatures. The type of upper air pattern that we had with this cool weather outbreak is one that we look for each year, both in the fall and in the spring, when we're looking at those transitional seasons and the first freezing temperatures of the fall season, for example, and then vice versa, the last freezing temperatures of the spring. You have to have that in order to find to get temperatures at the surface to get down at or below freezing. And in this case, again, with a unusually cool type of weather pattern, late August and into early September, we got close, but we did not see any frost or freezing temperatures. Now, the map that you see here, these are the dates of the first 32-degree Fahrenheit or lower value for the season. This is through the 10th, but it's essentially up through today. There were no freezing temperatures here in the last 24 hours. But you could see that at a couple locations, some even in Western Ohio, where we did get down to freezing. Notice, and one over in Minnesota, we also had a couple of freezing 32-degree values on our EnviroWeather MSU system, one in the southwest and one up at McBain in the northern lower. Both of those were over very dry landscapes, and that's another association at this time of the year. But the moral is here, even with that really cool pattern, we did not see much in the way of frost or freezing temperatures. That's certainly a good thing. All these values here would certainly be much earlier than normally is the case in the fall season. But we're seeing a change now in our upper air pattern to something much warmer, and very unlikely to see any threat of frost or freezing temperatures anytime soon, at least in the next couple of weeks. In terms of moisture, similar situation still, but a highly diverse landscape across Michigan, again, from excessive moisture in some northern parts of the state to persistent and continuing dryness across the south. The lower left-hand side here, this is a drought indicator, precipitation-based drought indicator for the last couple of months, and the warm colors indicating abnormally dry conditions, and vice versa for the cool, the blues and the greens. And again, not surprisingly, you can see unusually moist in the north, and many areas of the central and southwestern part of the state, the opposite, with where we've had persistent dryness over much of the last couple of months. On the right-hand side, this is a uh, estimation of soil moisture in the top 3 feet of the soil profile, expressed in terms of a percentile, with 0 being the driest, 100 being the wettest. And you can see again, especially for central and southwestern lower Michigan, we've had a continuing and persistent trend of much below normal moisture in the soil, and that likely will continue here. Right? That's one of the, again, given our forecast, we're likely to see that pattern continue for the next couple of weeks at least. Our degree day totals. This is also, I think, something important to note. Just like we saw for soil moisture, because there are some significant differences in the state. The left-hand side here, note that these are the long season. These are including the months of March and April, base 50 degree day units. And those totals range from about 1,300 in the far northern parts of the state, in the central upper, to 2,500 down in the far south. And on the right-hand side, this is what I wanted to point out here. If we look, how do those totals compare with normal? Well, it really depends on where you are, because while much of the southern part of the state, the central and southern part of the state in the reds here, is looking at surpluses of degree days. In other words, they're ahead of normal. There are areas in the northern part of the state, in particular, the central upper peninsula, where we have deficits. And given where we are right now, of course, moving in almost now to mid-September, this is a concern. So for some late planted crops there could be issues because of those deficits. But the last 1 to 2 weeks certainly did not do us any favors for that part of the state. But for much of the rest of the state, with, again, you can see the reds, we do have surpluses, and there really are no immediate threats to looking at any kind of killing freeze before maturity. We've got again, most areas at least a couple weeks now looking at the weather forecast, and that's favorable. And also it's also looking warmer than normal as well, so that should help. But the point is that we do have some significant differences here, both for moisture and in terms of degree day accumulations. On the weather map this morning, beautiful conditions over most of the state. On the left-hand side, air temperatures generally from the upper 40s, mid and upper 40s, in some spots to the mid 50s. And in most areas, there's a little bit of fog in some spots, but generally another beautiful start to the day. We did have some showers yesterday. Those are the 24-hour precip totals, which were not reflected in the previous image here, mostly again across the northern part of the state, where they've had very, very significant rains for much of the last week, with very little or no rain reported or observed here in the south. On the weather map this morning, we still have high pressure over Ontario, and then one of the Canadian air masses that's moved through the region. And that the couple things with that. One is it has been responsible for our certainly our dry, fair conditions, but also in most parts of the state, but also very dry air and low humidities. And that's likely to continue to be the case, but there's just not much on the map here this morning. So we are looking both today and tomorrow. As I step through, here's tomorrow map. Very little difference. You can start to see the next weather system to impact Michigan off to our west and north out over the northern plains. That will be here overnight Friday and into Saturday. And as we look at the week ahead, that really might be the only weather system that we're talking about. We have generally upper air ridging developing across the upper Midwest in our jet stream, and that's going to lead to a continuation of warm, fair, and dry conditions. High temperatures. One thing you will notice here, though, relative, especially the last week, it is going to be warmer, and we will see our maximum temperatures up into the 70s, most areas, to the low 80s in the south during the daytime, and then lows generally in the 50s. So a few degrees at or a little bit above normal here for the upcoming several days. But again, not much in the way of precipitation. As I move to Saturday here, though, that chance, and if you're going to go to the football game on Saturday, it's at least something to think about. But that really is going to be the only chance for precipitation here. The weather system you see here, most of the state, it'll be on Saturday during the morning hours, and it'll be scattered at best. I think even where precip does occur, we're talking about probably a tenth, maybe or two at tops. Most areas will not see much of any rain at all. There will be some clouds associated with this. And Saturday will probably, and we'll call it partly sunny during the day. But again, that's really the only weather system to speak of. That moves out overnight Saturday into Sunday. And then we look at another several day period for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday of mild, fair, warm, and dry conditions. And again, the dry also including not just no precip, but also including low humidity. Now, one thing, this goes back to some of John's comments, and one thing I guess we have that would be probably a positive in this situation is we will be seeing elevated dry down rates in the field. That it never hurts to have higher dry down rates, or again, loss of moisture be a little bit above normal where it typically is. So in terms of precip here over the upcoming week, a drier than normal week for virtually all the state and the region, generally less than a quarter of an inch. And again, most of that, if it does occur, would be on Saturday, but many areas will probably be dry then as well. So we are looking at unusually dry conditions in the south. Those conditions will continue. So thinking ahead about field work and thinking about fall planting for fall planted crops and so forth, that will at least start to become an issue, or at least something to think about with low moisture. But because we are looking probably at drier than normal conditions for much of the next 1 to 2 weeks. Water demand, potential evapotranspiration rates, and again, I go back to the issue of our field dry down at or a little bit above normal for the next upcoming week. And you can see our daily averages here from about a tenth to 15 hundredths of an inch. But again, at this time of the year for Michigan, and with the lack of precipitation, this is generally, as we look at our crops reaching maturity and then drying down, this is ultimately for most people, it's money in the pockets, and certainly that's not going to hurt in a year where we have prices like we do. The medium range forecast guidance very consistent with temperature, and both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks are strongly calling for warmer than normal conditions. I think that's everything. All the guidance points in this direction. Precip's a little bit less certain. On the 6 to 10 day outlook, you can see that we do have drier than normal conditions expected for eastern portions of the state and to our east, and then maybe a little bit wetter than normal to the west. The 8 to 14 day outlook has no direction. It's basically the equal chances. So we won't say much about precipitation, but the pattern that we just looked at here, until something changes, I would certainly probably hedge towards the drier than normal, or normal to below normal would be my own personal guess here. But I think the warmer than normal weather certainly looks like a very, very good bet. And again, I think one of the big messages here is more degree days, pushing things to maturity, and also again some decent dry down rates in the field. That's again for Michigan, that's almost always a good thing. And so summarizing, very straightforward forecast: a return of summer, also of warmer than normal temperatures, and as you can see from or just saw from the medium range, it's expected to continue for much of the next 2 weeks.